Yes, children's programming. This is not. Good evening. Welcome to a slightly delayed episode number 242 of Live Irish Myths. I'm Anthony Murphy. I'm your host for this evening. Yes, indeedy. We normally live stream on Mondays, just in case you're watching for the first time. There was a very good reason for the delay, and that reason is because I was on tour with a group of Swiss people, including our good friend Monica Regley, who is and has been for a long time a regular viewer of Live Irish Myths. And yes, I was leading her group around the Hill of Tara and Fornox yesterday. And this is the best excuse ever, right? Why was I not live streaming last night at 8 o'clock? That is because I was enjoying fine dining with said Swiss group of visitors at the Trim Castle Hotel here in the Boyne Valley. Spectacularly good food. A number of courses were enjoyed in the wonderful company of Monica and her companions. So, yes, we can all blame her. I said I would, just for the laugh. Where did that noise come from? I must not have interruptions. Anyway, good evening, everybody. Welcome. We are live streaming simultaneously on the Mythical Ireland Facebook page and the Mythical Ireland YouTube channel. And if Auntie Jo has helped, which she always does, we should be also live streaming on the Mythical Ireland community on Facebook as well. If you are joining for the first time, please do join in the conversation. Please thank you, Joe. I see you have indeed shared the live stream to the Mythical Ireland community. Please do feel free to comment. Say hello. We will say hello back to you. If you're watching on YouTube, of course, please do subscribe to the channel. If you want to support Mythical Ireland, of course, there are two methods here immediately available. Patreon.com. New article just shared about an hour or two ago on Patreon for patrons at the Bronze Age level and above. A 2,000-word article about the Sligo monuments and some photos. Get on over there and become a patron. Otherwise, if you want to make a one-off, it's buy me a coffee or buy me a coffee making machine. I mean, in terms of what you pledge. Welcome all. Elaine Dent-Lingenfelter has a habit of being the first commenter. She's telling us that it's only 30.5 Celsius in Texas right now. Which is 5.5 degrees warmer than the warmest temperature I saw in Ireland last week, which was the best week of the year weather-wise for us. And normal service resumed. Although it's clear this evening, it's much cooler. It's about 15 Celsius here. Normal service resumed over the weekend. We had rain, we had clouds, we had misty weather and all of that stuff. Michael Trott is in Slane rather than New Zealand. He's here, folks, several miles west of me here. About about 6 or 7 miles? What's that in kilometers? Is that 10 or 12 kilometers away? Michael is as close as he has ever been. Michael, a good evening to you and great to see you and welcome to the Boyne Valley. Samantha Healy is in the house saying hello to myself and Tom and all the two. A very good evening to you, Samantha. Thank you for joining us. Auntie Jo is saying hello from Colorado. Hope all is well for the mighty Tua. You can't say Tua without putting the mighty in, you know. And Wayne Bird says, hello, Anthony. Hope everyone is well. You've had a busy time with your tours. Looks like everyone is enjoying it. Yeah, busy time. And a little bit of rest for a few days. And then we're off again. Busy September. But anyway, it's all good, you know. Any tours tomorrow at all? No, tomorrow I am doing some of the old work tomorrow. Thank you, Joe, for sharing your our live stream to the other pages. Alice, is it Weeble or is it Veeble? I don't know how you pronounce that. Hi from the west coast of Sweden. Well, good evening, Alice. You're very welcome. Not sure if you've watched our streams before, but you're very welcome to Live Irish Myths. Episode number 242. Please make yourself comfortable, and I'm sure everybody will give you a lovely warm welcome. Michael Pike is in the house. Good afternoon to you, Michael. Thanks for joining us. Mark Gordon is in Iowa. Good afternoon, Mark. Jacqueline Kelly is in the Pacific Northwest, which isn't just the Pacific Northwest, of course. It is the beautiful Pacific Northwest. Hello, Jacqueline. Lovely to see you. As always, Patricia Pack is in Alabama. And what's her name? Alabama, sir. What's that from? Oh, yeah, Crimson Tide, isn't it? Yes, indeed. Ricardo Zanfi is saying, hello from Italy. Buona serata, Ricardo. Come in and enjoy yourself. Sit down, make yourself comfortable. Cade Mila Folja, 100,000 welcomes. Sue, no, not Sue, because Rex is there first. Morning, folks, ready to rock. Is it morning where you are, Rex? Where are you? Please do tell us. I suspect it's early afternoon. Rex, you're very, very welcome, as always. Sue Prenter has just read the piece on Patreon. Lovely to read. Well, thank you for your feedback, Sue. Sue, of course, is a Bronze Age or maybe higher patron of Mythical Ireland, and she has read the goods already. So that's, as I say, a 2,000-word article about the Sligo Monument. Some interesting insights into some of the stuff that's going on over there. Absolutely love Sligo. Hate to leave it. The only thing that makes me leave it is coming back to the Boyne Valley. But can't wait for the next time, you know. Anne Scott Doherty is in County Clare. Welcome to any newcomers. Heading to Cork tomorrow, then County Meath in a week. Fantastic stuff. You're doing the rounds, Anne, and sure, look, no better person to do it. And I hope Bill is tagging along. Patricia Pax should live stream all the courses, says Patricia. Caitlin Moon is saying hello from Dublin. Good evening. Folge Balya Clea. Janet Moran says, hello, Anthony and crew from rainy Boston. Hope you're all keeping well. Sounds very Irish, but look, after a beautiful week, mostly, we had 6 days of fabulous weather, and then Sunday was like, yeah, and it was raining yesterday while I was leading the Swiss people across the Hill of Tara, but they didn't mind. They had raincoats and they had umbrellas. They were fine, you know. Arvin Gaunt is in Canada. Good afternoon to Arvin and all our Canadian viewers. John Inman is on my way to San Francisco, driving. Well, John, don't forget, key advice. If you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear Tom King's Triskel in your hair. Ulster digging. My first time watching live, but watched loads of your stuff, Anthony, from Ards Peninsula. Well, good evening to you. Ulster digging. Archaeological digging or contractual house building, farming digging, or what? Sounds fascinating, and you're very welcome. Hope you enjoy it. Yeah, stay around and tell us a bit more about yourself. Elaine Dentlingenfelter says, I need help. One of the lovely Tua sent Cheyenne a beautiful card from Termon Feckin, and we can't see a name. Can't be too many people in Termon Feckin. We don't have any regular viewers in Termon Feckin, as far as I know. But folks, there's something interesting about this. I meet people all the time who say, oh yeah, I watch your live streams, but I don't usually comment, or I watch them afterwards. I don't usually catch them live. I watch them afterwards. There's tons of people who watch and who don't, and that's perfectly okay, of course, who don't announce themselves. I wonder who that is. So anyway, we're putting it out there. Elaine's granddaughter, Cheyenne, has been going through something of a challenge lately and is in hospital and is being treated and is recovering. And we were all sending her cards and letters. And it seems, hopefully, a load of them arrived. But she got one from Termon Feckin, which is very close to Drogheda here in County Louth. And we don't know who that's from. So perhaps if you are the person who sent it, you might make yourself known so that we can put a name to the card. What's your favorite coffee, says Mark? I'm not a coffee drinker. I like coffee, but I can't myself. It provokes all sorts of stuff, like it gives me anxiety and palpitations and stuff. So I actually can't drink much coffee. I like a hazelnut latte, actually. Michael Trott saw Doubt earlier. It says a no drone zone outside. Lovely Irish weather today. Yeah, it was a bit better today. A bit of sunshine today, you know. Anne McCallum is saying, hello, Anton, and all the mighty two. I hope everyone's doing well. A cloudy, chilly, rainy, 13 Celsius morning has turned into a not so cloudy, sunny 21 Celsius. Just home just in time for today's story time. Yay, brilliant stuff, Anne. And I saw all your comments on the social media posts. I think you had missed, you had been away maybe, and catching up on everything. So that was wonderful to see. Wet, says Michael Trott. Yes, yeah. Chungus Khan is in Maryland, Republic of Irish America, as almost always. Yes. Chungus, good afternoon. Tuesday, Thompson is saying happy Mythology Monday, but on Taco Tuesday. What goes better with tacos than Irish mythology? A good afternoon to you indeed. And John Inman is still driving. Drive safe, John, to San Francisco. It's my granddaughter, and she's hanging in there. Thanks for asking. Well, I hope all the cards, I hope she got loads. And I hope that they made a difference. Adrian O'Beglin is in the house. Hello, Adrian. Evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Alice is saying thank you for the welcome. You're very, very welcome for the welcome. Thank you. Auburn Tigers, War Eagle, says Patricia. In reference to what? I'm sorry, I'm completely lost. Patricia, you'll have to forgive me. Advancing age and all of that, you know. Rex just likes to mess with people by saying good morning, no matter what time it is. If it's sort of lunchtime, you know, very early afternoon, I always say good after morning. Susan Scott, hello all. Glad I caught up with you. Well, we're glad you caught up with us, Susan. It's good to see you. Monica Regley, look, she is the whole reason I wasn't here yesterday. Hope you had a great day today, Monica. And what a pleasure. What a lovely evening we had. What a lovely day we had yesterday. But lovely at dinner in Oranmore. Well, isn't it? It's some life you're leading there now, you know. And if it's, can I come over to Oranmore for a bite of grub now? I'm joking, of course. Oh, yes, indeed. The chair, the Mythical Ireland chair that I've been sitting on since the beginning of the live streams gave up the ghost in the past week. All the wheels are broken, and the arms are totally ripped, and all the padding is falling out of them. So, Peter Woods, who is very close to us here, he lives in Monaster Boys, Office Care 36. Peter came to the rescue and delivered me a new chair, a very comfortable chair at that. I'll have you know. Actually, if I do this, I can just whoa and fall asleep, but I won't fall asleep. I promise not to fall asleep during the episode. Thank you, Peter, for your brilliant work and for sorting me out. Treasure hunting, digging, metal detecting, says Ulster Digging. Yeah, that's allowed up there, isn't it? Not allowed here at all. Irish Technical Thinker, who's Marcus, is in the house. Greetings, good evening to you. He's in Belfast. And John Inman says there's a bar on every corner. The Irish made sure of that. Yeah, there's an Irish pub pretty much everywhere. Is there an Irish pub in Timbuktu? That's what we want to know. Alva Kelly is saying, Bannockty, looking forward to cooler temperatures and wild winds from the prevailing westerlies and some good storytelling. Well, I don't know about the good storytelling, but hopefully the rest will happen for you. And Marcus is praying for Cheyenne's recovery. Julie Felder says, saying, so happy I finally get to be here when you're live. Brilliant stuff, Julie. You're very welcome to Live Irish Myths. Fáilte Isteach, welcome in. Find yourself a comfortable seat. Make yourself a cup of tea or something stronger if you prefer, and enjoy. Is Tom of the Triskel in this evening? Hello, if he is. I haven't seen him so far, Michael. Brendan Byrne is here, all the way from Glendalough. Good evening, good morning, and good night, he is saying. Good evening to you, Brendan. Sotonar has joined us. Trinonoa, Tufane Sotonar. She got 14 in one day. Brilliant. Well, of course, she has her granny to thank for that. Well done, Granny. Brilliant stuff. And I'm delighted to hear that now. That's great. Shannon Donahue says it's still morning in Alaska. Of course it is. Yes. Brilliant stuff. And thank you for joining us, Shannon. Tuning in early in the morning in Alaska. You watching? No, I have to say I haven't had the chance really to get my head into the zone of rugby. I've been touring so much and then trying to write, you know. And then the calendar. Let me talk about the calendar in a moment. Judy McQueen is in the house. Good evening, Judy. Welcome to Live Irish Myths. I'm in Alabama, says Patricia. You mentioned Crimson Tide. They're the arch enemy of Auburn Tigers. I see indeed. Good. Monica can't hear anything with 35 people in the dining room. So We have a simple solution to that, Monica. You turn around and tell them all to shut up. Shh, I'm listening to live Irish Myths here. Will you stop talking, the whole lot of yous? I jest, of course. Adina Sparks is saying there's a nice soft rain in New Mexico. Adina, would I be right in saying New Mexico is a fairly arid place? Would rain be rare enough? Would you get much rain in the year? Ireland destroyed Romania 83-7. Let's go, Ireland. Yes. Well, not the toughest opposition we'll come up against in this competition, you know. You were a day late. I'm only 12 minutes, so not bad at all, says Lily Shambles. Yes, very true. I can't argue with that. I really can't. Yeah, the rest in peace, Mythical Ireland chair. You will be missed. Long live Mythical Ireland chair 2. In fairness, it had been here for several years before the live streams. It has provided sterling service. Josie Weatherford is so glad. Well, we're glad that you can be here, Josie. Of course, with your lovely smile and you're always a very positive person. We love positivity. Amy Wallace Dolan is in the house. Hello, all X. Hello, Amy. Good evening. Welcome. Make yourself comfortable. So the calendar. The 2024 calendar, what's going to happen this year is, and I may have explained this already, but I've selected a long list of photo candidates for the calendar. And as you know, I need 13, one for the cover and one for each month for 12 months. Is it true that standing stones were originally prehistoric rugby posts, Brendan? Yeah. I don't know. So we're going to go for a slightly different design this year because I know it's only taken me 3 years to figure it out. The calendar in its current format is A3, and it requires a card-backed envelope, and it doesn't travel well. It gets battered around, especially on its way to the States and Canada and far-off places like Australia, and arrives crumpled. What we're going to do this year is we're going to create a calendar, an A4 calendar. It will be A4 initially, right? So you'll see the front cover of the calendar, and then you'll open the calendar, and the top part will be the photo, and the bottom part will be like the calendar, and that is A3. It'll still be the same size, but it'll be folded. And actually, I think I'll go for folding rather than wire binding. So it'll be A4, a flat A4, smaller envelope, and will travel much better. So the calendar will hopefully be going to print, hopefully by the end of this month, actually. If not, maybe the first 1 or 2 weeks of October. And as soon as I have a final design done, which will hopefully be in the next week, I will, of course, make it available for pre-ordering because I want to make sure that people are able to pre-order as early as possible because a lot of people will be looking for the calendar for Christmas, which is why I want to get it printed in October. I want to get all the pre-orders away during October. I don't want any of them hanging around till Samhain to give them plenty of time to get across the water to wherever they have to go. So keep an eye out for that. As I said, I've long listed photographs. And when I say I've long listed, let me just quickly check actually how many I have long listed. I have a selection currently of 29 and I need 13. So I'm going to be choosing just a little bit less than half of those for the final calendar. So I have to give that a lot of thought and attention over the next number of days. But anyway, as I say, the calendar is in the initial stages of redesign. As I say, it will open up into the same size, but it'll be an A4 calendar when folded, but an A3 calendar when opened up. And I'm getting some help with that. So watch out on the social media channels, on the Facebook, Mythical Ireland on Facebook, Mythical Ireland Community on Facebook, Mythical Ireland Creatives on Facebook, Mythical Ireland on Instagram, Mythical Ireland on Twitter, and of course on the website where the first pre-ordering will be available. So you'll be able to pre-order 1 or 5 or 10 or however many copies you want. Johnny Wilson is in Texas, in Dallas. Good afternoon to you, Johnny. A little bit cooler there at the moment. Tea is here, but still no peppermint. What's going on with there? Look, have you any chamomile? I'll take a cup of chamomile if that's available. England v Scotland halftime tea list. Congrats on the 20k. Yes, 20,000 subscribers finally reached on YouTube. Yay! Let's keep it going now. Let's look for the 50,000 and the 100,000 and the 500,000 and the 2 million. Yeah. Brilliant. Good stuff. And thanks for the reminder. Who was that? Sorry, that was Alva Kelly. Yeah. So we just hit 20,000 subscribers on YouTube in the past few days, which is fantastic. So thank you for all of you for your loyalty, your support, which is very much appreciated. Let me just check something here. Good, yeah. Yeah, all good. So we will get on with the reading, I think. Yeah. So I want to do say a quick. Yeah, it is 20 after 12. How many are watching at the moment? 47. I wanted to say a quick hello to Tom King. I'm not sure if he's joining us this evening. Tom was in the hospital the other day having a little procedure done. Nothing too serious, but I think it's kind of maybe knocked the wind out of his sails for a few days, and he's in the recovery bed, as it were. He's just taking it easy at the moment while he recovers from that. So, all our best wishes to Tom Ongawa for a speedy recovery and get back to action ASAP as quickly as possible. And we'll, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't sort of turn up, but if he doesn't, it just means he's just having a kip and just having a bit of a rest, you know. Marcus studied beekeeping for 6 months last year and found that the Boyne Valley has some of the best honey in the world. I've never visited the farm, actually, no, but I have tasted some of the honey. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Very good. And loads of people already saying, wishing Tom a speedy recovery. Yeah, so I was talking to him yesterday evening, and he was in great form. So he's good. Oh, there we go. Speak of the devil, and he arrives. Tom, we were just saying best. We were just saying best wishes for after your little procedure. I didn't tell him what it was, but nothing. I told him it wasn't anything overly serious, but that you were just kind of taking a few days to relax and recuperate, as it were. So loads of people wishing you the best there. Anyway, blacksmith is never late. He arrives precisely when he means to. Yeah, Brendan is pointing out. No wonder the temperature has dropped. Tom's forge is off. Come back, Thomas. Yeah. Gavin says, you must have had some buzz there, technical thinker. Sorry, I had to. You're in the right place for corny jokes. Let me tell you that for nothing. So I got another one. I got one off Monica. Monica was reminding me over dinner in the Trimcastle Hotel yesterday evening. Monica was reminding me at some of my best, or you might call them my worst jokes over the live streams. And she particularly loved the one about the two lads digging the holes and filling them in. And she told what I thought was a similar joke. Anyway, I'm going to try and repeat it. So if this goes down like a lead balloon, I'm just going to blame Monica. If it gets a fantastic reaction, I'll say it's just the way I told it, right? So this is the joke. Paddy and Mick, basically two Irishmen, were in the pub, and they were heavily drunk, as it were. And they were on their way home from the pub. And as they were crossing over a bridge, they noticed these two fellas. And one had the other fella hanging out over the bridge and was holding on to him by his trouser legs, you know. And the other fella screamed, pull me up, pull me up. And so the fella pulled him up, and he had in his hands an enormous fish. He was after basically fishing, grabbing a fish out of the river. And so Paddy and Mick were looking at this, and as they walked on, Paddy says to Mick, why don't we try that? And Mick says, yeah, great idea. So at the next bridge, they stopped, and Paddy lowered Mick over the edge and had him, you know, by the boots or the bottom of the legs, hanging down off the bridge. And all of a sudden, Mick shouting, pull me up, pull me up. Paddy says, why? Did you catch a fish? Mick says, no, there's a fucking train coming. I can't tell jokes and hold a straight face. I'm pretty awful at it. Yes. Welcome to the House of Humour, says Patricia. Well, I don't know, but that depends on what you call humour. Anyway, we'll see by the reaction now who gets the blame for that. Okay, Irish Technical Thinker is laughing. Yes. It's the way you tell him. It's definitely the way you tell it. A train wreck. Didn't see that coming, says John Main. John, I don't think I said hello to you this evening. I'm pretty sure I didn't, for which I apologise. Did you announce yourself earlier? I didn't see. Oh, there you are. Greetings on tour from Crete, from a cool Crete 22. It's 15 here, maximum, actually. I'll tell you right now what it is here. Survived, Daniel. Hoping everyone is doing well. Was Daniel a storm, was it? A lot of flooding in North Africa, and then an earthquake in Morocco. Oh God, temperatures now dropped to 11. Wow. Anyway, I need to get on. John, you're very, very welcome as always, and we'll see you very soon. Actually, that one was pretty good, although I heard some Donegal brogue at the end. Too funny, says Anne Callum. Adina Sparks is laughing. You can catch a train, though, says Irish Tactical. Yes, Wayne Bird, brilliantly done. Tom King is looking for Paddy Riley to come back. Excuse me. Brendan gives that one 9 out of 10. Train jokes are difficult, according to Michael Pike. They're difficult to spot. Get it? Train spotting. Never mind. Anyway, I'm moving on. This is the chapter called Revenue and Authority, and we are continuing with our reading of A Social History of Ancient Ireland, P.W. Weston. P.W. Joyce, Patrick Weston Joyce, published 1903. So we're picking up where we left off last week, basically. Is everybody comfortable and ready? Tough, because I'm starting. Joke, of course. Yes, I'll wait for everybody to say they're ready. No, I will not. Train spotters. Oh, yeah. I love trains. The revenue of the king or ruling chief of whatever grade, which enabled him to support his court and household, was derived from three main sources. First, he was allowed for life, or for as long as he continued chief, a tract of land called Theron Board, land of the board or table, B-O for the R-D, the board or table, mensal land, some of which he cultivated by his own bondsmen, and some he let to tenants. Yeah, he didn't actually cultivate the land himself. Second, subsidies of various kinds mentioned in Chapter 7, Section 3, paid him by his free tenant farmers and other free members of the tribe, by the unfree families and tribes, and also by his subject kings or chiefs. Third, payment for stock, as described in Chapter 7, Section 3. But in addition to all this, he might have land as his own personal property, and other minor sources of income will be noticed in the next section. Minor sources of income. The king or chief was the military leader in war, the governor in peace, and he and his people lived in mutual dependence. He was bound to protect the tribesmen from violence and wrong, and they maintained him in due dignity. It was both a danger and a disgrace not to have a chief to look up to, hence the popular saying, "Spend me and defend me." Craftsmen of the various trades, like tenant farmers, had to place themselves under the protection of the chief and paid tribute, often in kind, the articles made by themselves, which formed an important item of the chief's revenue. While the inferior chief, or whatever grade, paid tribute, call it in Irish quiche, not Quiche, C-I for the S, to his superior, the latter, by a curious custom, was bound to give his dependent a stipend of some kind, or a stipend called torcrec or turastal, much smaller, however, than what he received. The tribute paid to the superior, whether by a subordinate chief or by an individual tribesman, consisted mainly of cattle and provisions of various kinds, plough oxen, hogs, sheep, with mantles and other articles of dress. And it often included such things as dye-stuffs, woolen sewing thread, firewood, wood for carpentry work, and sometimes gold and silver reckoned in ounces. In all cases, the quantity or amount, whatever the commodity, was defined by law and custom. The tributary king made up part of his payments by levying tribute according to well-defined custom on his own inferiors. On the other hand, the torcrech given by the superior to his sub-king or chief consisted mainly of such articles as arms, steeds, drinking horns, brooches, etc. For example, while the king of Dalriada in northeast Ulster gave 300 oxen each year to his superior, the king of Ullad or Ulster, worth, say, £5,000 or £6,000 of our money. Remember, this is 1903, that's a lot of money. The latter gave the king of Dalriada a torastal of 3 steeds, 3 bondmen, 3 bondwomen. The name's Bond. James Bond. Shaken, not stirred. And 3 small ships, all which might now represent £600 or £700. And of course, that's from Slaughter Gark is a Book of Rights. The Book of Rights. Fascinating stuff. Wow. That train keeps on rolling on down to San Antone. The acceptance of Turkrek or Turastal or stipend by the inferior was an acknowledgement of submission and allegiance. A refusal to accept it was equivalent to renouncing or refusing to announce allegiance. When Malachy II came to Brian Boru's tent in 1002 with a retinue of 12 score men to offer him submission, Brian gave him a torcrech of 12 score steeds, which he accepted. What's 12 score? Is 12 20s. It's 240, isn't it? Wow. Is it? 12 20s? 12 10s is 120. Yes, 12, yes. Don't doubt yourself, Anthony. But the retinue felt so mortified at their own king's submission that to a man they refused to take charge of them. So Malachy presented them in token of friendship to Brian's son Murragh O'Brien. Sometimes, in case of the lower order of dependence, this subsidy was called Ra or wages. Ra spelt R-A-I-T-H. The tributes and stipends for the various ranks are set forth in detail in the Book of Rights. And the Book of Rights, quote, gives an account of the rights of the monarchs of all Ireland and the revenues payable to them by the principal kings of the several provinces, and of the stipends paid by the monarchs to the inferior kings for their services. This is a long quote. It also treats of the rights of each of the provincial kings and the revenues payable to them from the inferior kings of the districts or tribes subsidiary to them, and of the stipends paid by the superior to the inferior provincial kings for their services. This sounds very like legal documents, doesn't it? Which probably is. These accounts are authoritatively described. Sorry. Try that again, Anthony, and read it properly this time. These accounts are authoritatively delivered in verse, each poem being introduced by a prose statement. Wow. I think I have in my library, believe it or not, I think I have a part at least of Laur na Gearc. Interesting. Do I? Is the next question. Laur na Gearc. Is it Geart? Or what did I call it? Laur na Gearc. Yes, indeed. Yeah, there it is. And so just for example, I just opened it on a page there. These are the rights of Cashel and of the king of Cashel from the tribes within. From the Muscrea first, this tribute begins 1,000 cows and 1,000 boars then from Muscrea. Then 100 cows, 100 pigs, and 100 oxen from the Uthne. Then 200 wethers, 100 boars, 100 cows, and 100 green mantles from the Array. Then 100 cows, 100 oxen, and 100 boars from Corculaige. Wow. Oh, man. Well, they say the measure of your wealth in Ireland until the first coins, until the Vikings, basically, until uh, Dublin, until coins were minted in Dublin. Oh, apologies. Seems there was a loose wire. Until the coins were minted in Dublin, the measure of your wealth in medieval Ireland was the number of cows you had. Seems that the king was particularly wealthy. Lawyers, yay. Who said that? That was Rex. Yeah. I know, fun, right? Vicky Wallace Southall, good evening, good afternoon to you, and to Evan and Chile if they're watching. Hello, and welcome to Live Irish Myths. Yes, 240. I know, it took me a while there, didn't it? How many rabbit holes? Joe wants to know. How many fingers am I holding up? By the way, the other hand was off screen, so you can't guess. According to the old authorities, Saint Benin or Beninus was the author of the original Book of Rites. The present transcripts of it, which were, we know, copied from more ancient versions, are not older than the end of the 14th century. This, however, refers to the mere penmanship. The language is much older, and it is O'Donovan's opinion that the prose introductions, which are much less ancient than the text, were written in their present form at a time not far removed from the period of Brian Boru. The Book of Rites has been published with translation and most valuable introduction and notes by John O'Donovan, LLD. A king usually secured the allegiance of his sub-kings and chiefs by taking hostages from them. Giel, hostage. Duan and Neil, mound of the hostages. Nile of the 9 hostages. Ni Gielach. So that every king had hostages residing in his palace, a custom noted by Adovnon. Excuse me. He is not a king, says the Brehon law, who has not hostages in fetters. And of course, that was a way of maintaining peace, because if your rival king from a neighboring province attacked you, you could just kill his sons or maim them. You didn't even need to kill them, because no king could rule who was blemished. Michael Pike got the answer right. I was holding 37 fingers up. Notwithstanding the expression used in this quotation, which probably is in a great measure figurative, hostages appear, in fact, to have been generally treated with consideration. In other words, they weren't hostages as such, they were fosterlings. They were seldom kept in fetters. They were permitted to have their own retinue and were admitted to the court society so long as they conducted themselves with propriety. But sometimes, which would be something for an Irish person, wouldn't it? But sometimes, either on account of misconduct or where there was special reason for unfriendly feeling, they were treated with great harshness or cruelty, heavily fettered and closely confined. Except in very few cases, they were not permitted to carry arms. Hostages must have been very numerous in every king's palace. For we are told in the life of St. Patrick that in his time, Lera, King of Ireland, had in Tara 9 hostages from one chief alone, namely Dicho, Prince of Lecal. Wow. 9 from one king. That sounds a bit kind of greedy, really, doesn't it? In every palace, there was a special house for lodging hostages. In Tara, one of the mounds was called Duan and Neil, the mound of the hostages, which still remains, and beside it stood the hostage house. Well, that's interesting, because the mound of the hostages would not make very good lodgings for anybody, being a very small, sort of enclosed little cell. Basically, it's only a corridor about 8 feet long. And about 3 feet wide, not a very comfortable space. I haven't had that many drams, says Rex. Look at 37. Yes, indeed. King Cormac made, this is a quote, made a visitation of Ireland thrice, or 3 times if you prefer, and brought a hostage from every fortress, and to these he gave Dua Nanil, with a house beside it to reside in. In the feast of Duningage, we are told that Donal, King of Ireland, built his castle at Duningage in imitation of that at Tara, and among other buildings he erected the Carker Nangiel, the prison house of the hostages. In a poem in the Book of Lechem, describing the building of Alyach, it is stated that, quote, one stone closed the top of the house of the groaning hostages, unquote. Doesn't sound like they were being treated too well if they were groaning, to be honest with you, you know. Beginning to wonder, says Brendan Byrne, if Game of Thrones wasn't transcribed from some ancient Irish text. Joan McHugh is in the house. Hello there. Long time no see or hear indeed. Hello, Joan. Welcome. Hope you're in good form and great to see you. You missed the bad joke, and let's be honest, it's probably a good thing. From which words we may infer that this was a beehive-shaped house, like those pictured and described elsewhere in this book, of which numberless specimens will remain. The Cree Gowloch, in describing the residence of a king, speaks of a, quote, moat or trench of servitude, unquote, drecht gielni, for hostages, and states that its length is 30 feet. So they had a certain independence, and they could have a retinue and take part in the court society so long as they behaved themselves. But apparently, if they didn't, they could be confined to quarters and could be groaning, which doesn't sound like they've been treated too well. Anyway, there you go. The hostages. Harshness, Mr. Bond. The name's Bond, James Bond. This section of the chapter is called Privileges. Well, we've come on. Jeez, we've been reading a lot. We are now on page 55, and we started on page 3 on our first episode, which is 3 episodes ago. So, yeah. Privileges. A king enjoyed many privileges and was bound by many restrictions. It will be shown farther on that he was subject to the ordinary law like his free subjects. But if a distress lay against him, he was not to be distrained directly. One of his officers, called a steward bailiff, Ahach Fortha, a sort of deputy, was to be distrained in his place. Quote, this is an original steward who always sustains the liability of a king. It is what saves him, the king, from being distrained. Like the prerogative of the crown in British law, by which the monarch sues and is sued through the Attorney General. What does it mean to distrain? I don't know that word. I know, right? Every day is a learning day. Distrain, seize in order to obtain payment of rent or other money. Okay. There you go. Joan McHugh says, Anthony always tells a good joke. We just have shitty ears. Thank you, Joan. I'll give you that 20 later. According to the Shanachas Mór, a king's evidence in a Brehan's court against all of a rank below him was accepted without question, as they had not the right to be heard in evidence against him. But this privilege did not hold against a bishop, a doctor of learning, or a pilgrim, all of whom were regarded as of equal rank with himself, so far as giving evidence was concerned. Wow. The king excels all in testimony, says the Shanachas Mór, for he can, by his mere word, decide against every class of persons except those of 2 orders, namely of religion and learning, who are of equal rank with himself, as the doctor, sui, or the bishop, or the pilgrim. Wow. Fascinating stuff. Whatever was found on a high road, if the owner was not forthcoming, belonged to the king, except the finder's reward, also a certain proportion of everything cast ashore by the sea, a third of every treasure found within his territory, and 1/9 of the reward paid by the owner to the founder of a thing in a waste place. These rights continued to be enjoyed by the provincial kings down to the 15th century. Wow, incredible. When a king of any grade ascended the throne, he usually made a visitation of royal progress through his kingdom to receive allegiance and hostages from his sub kings. I imagine the hostages, the king's sons, neighboring king's sons, weren't too pleased about having the king around. And this was sometimes repeated during his reign. Visitations of this kind were called Searchort, free circuit, intimating that the king was to be entertained with all his retinue free of charge, like a state banquet, in which, in modern times, in which the John, Mrs. Jenny A. and Mr. John B. taxpayer pick up the bill, foot the bill, as it were. The King of Ireland, when on free circuit, always brought a numerous escort, or even an army if opposition was anticipated, and he was received by the provincial kings with much state and formality. He always proceeded in the same direction, sunwise, Jeshel. Apparently there's a Jeshel in the index. I don't see an index. Interesting. But Jeshel meaning right-hand wise or sunwise. Brian Boru, when making his visitation, AD 1005, proceeded with an army from his palace of Kincora at the present town of Killaloe, and that is very close to where Alan Hoskins watches us from, and he's not on this evening, to Connacht, thence by Assaroe and all around, keeping his left hand to the sea till he reached Kincora again. At these visitations, the Ardrey proceeded very leisurely, and on his march, every provincial king and each king of Amortua escorted him in state as far as the residence of the neighbour king. A king of any lower grade followed the same course on his visitations and was received and escorted similarly. Index is in volume 2 in the back, says Josie. And I don't have volume 2. I am going to have to correct that at some point. Thank you for the information, Josie, as always. It was the belief of the ancient Irish that when a good and just king ruled, one who faithfully observed in his government the royal customs and wise precepts followed by his ancestors, the whole country was prosperous. The seasons were mild, crops were plentiful, cattle were fruitful, the waters abounded with fish, and the fruit trees had to be propped owing to the weight of their produce, which is brilliant. And I suppose the king would be nervously thinking, I hope the crop is good this year, or else I could be in trouble, and maybe I'll get to keep my, I was going to say my seat, maybe I'll get to keep my privileges if everything goes well. Under bad kings, it was all the reverse. In the reign of the plebeian usurping King Carberry Kincat, quote, evil was the state of Ireland. Fruitless her corn, for there used to be only one grain on the stalk. Fruitless her rivers, milkless her cattle, plentiless her fruit, for there used to be but one acorn on the stalk. Unquote. And apparently that's from the Annals of the Four Masters, and that's AD 14. So Carberry Kincat didn't last long, I wouldn't think. We'd have to read about him further, wouldn't we? There are 7 proofs, this is another quote, there are 7 proofs which attest the falsehood of every king, i.e. 7 proofs or testimonies of the king's badness. To turn a church synod out of their lish, to be without truth, without law, defeat in battle, you have to win every fight, dearth in his reign, dryness of cows, blight of fruit, scarcity of corn. These are the 7 live candles that expose the falsehood of every bad king. And that's from the Brehon Laws. This belief is referred to everywhere in Irish literature and even found its way into Christianity. Oh, wow. Who said Christianity didn't take upon itself some of the beliefs and systems of the pagans? Pagans, I hate using that word. In an ancient canon attributed to St. Patrick, among other blessings attending the reign of a just king, are enumerated, quote, fine weather, calm seas, crops abundant, and trees laden with fruit, unquote. And that's from Stokes's A Tripartite Life, which I presume is the tripartite life of St. Patrick. Of course it is, because we just mentioned him. The belief in the beneficent influence of a just king prevailed among the Greeks and Romans. Ulysses, in disguise, says to Penelope, speaking of a good king, quote, the dark earth bears wheat and barley, and the trees are laden with fruit, and the sheep bring forth without fail, and the sea yields plenty of fish, and all from his wise rule, and the people prosper under him, unquote. And that's from the Odyssey XIX. Similar testimony might be adduced from Roman writers about their rulers. The ancient Irish had a very high ideal of what a king should be. And when we meet with many statements throughout old literature of the noble qualities expected from him, and we meet with many blah, 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 he should be, quote, free from falsehood, from the betrayal of his nobles, from unworthy conduct towards his people, unquote. And another quote, for what is a prince selected over a country? Asks Carberry of King Cormac, who replies, quote, for the goodness of his form and race, and sense, and learning, and dignity, and utterance. He is selected for his goodness and for his wisdom, and strength, and forces, and valour in fighting, unquote. A just sovereign, quote, exercises not falsehood, nor unnecessary force, nor oppressive might. He is perfectly recognizant and righteous to his people, both weak and strong, unquote. And isn't that the mark of a very good leader? It is a mark of a leader how that person treats the weak as well as the strong. A king, quote, must be a man of full lawfulness in all respects. He must be a man that is consulted for knowledge. He must be learned and calm, unquote. A king was also to be hospitable and keep an open house. A prince, says Cormac MacArt, should light his lamps on Samhain day and welcome his guests with clapping of hands and comfortable seats, and the cupbearers should be active in distributing meat and drink. So sausages and whiskey for everyone there now. For every one of you. Pass it round. Tea. Where's tea? Tea. We need something stronger than tea tonight. There's tea. Hi, ITT. Yes. Valerie Gallagher is waving. Hi, Valerie. Anna L has joined us late today due to new job, but happy that I made it. Wow. Well, congratulations on the new job. Taoiseach, President. I hope it's a good one, and the best of luck with it, Anna L. And thanks for joining us anyway. You know. Okay. A good idea of what was expected in this way from a king is obtained from a statement in the story of the Second Battle of Moytura about King Bress, and we, of course, have encountered this time and time again on numerous live streams. King Bress, whose reign was not exactly memorable for the right reasons. The people complained bitterly of his churlishness and inhospitality. I was going to say inhospitality, but it's actually inhospitality or unhospitality. He was inhospitable. He was not hospitable. Quote, the knives of his people were not greased at his table, nor did their breath smell of ale at the banquet. Neither the poets, nor their bards, nor their satirists, nor their harpers, nor their pipers, nor their trumpeters, nor their jugglers, nor their buffoons were ever seen engaged in amusing them in the assembly at his court, unquote. So that in the end they rose up for this and other reasons and drove him from the throne. The native Gaelic ideal of what a king should be is set forth in several descriptions of individual monarchs, to which references are given below. Similar maxims are inculcated in the ecclesiastical legislation of St. Patrick. The duties of a king are fully set forth in one of the patrician canons, which, as might be expected, lays great stress on what was to be expected from him in regard to his moral and religious obligations. A king should have 3 chief residences. Quote, every king is a pauper, unquote, says the law, as quoted by Sullivan, quote, who hath not 3 chief residences, that is, it is 3 chief residences each king is entitled to have, i.e., 3 houses or 3 duns, unquote. A similar statement is made in the law tract called the Small Primer, and also in volume IV.377, 13. I'm sure you're all diving for your manuscripts right now to find that reference. But in this last, the translation does not show it. See Atkinson's Glossary to Brehon Laws, volume VIP 180, Contairism, a residence, and also V blah 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 blah. Yes. Too detailed. A king wore a crown or diadem called mind or min, for which see chapter XXII section 3. What was the crown made of? Kings had certain heirlooms which descended to their successors. The Rothcree, or royal wheel brooch, which the poets insolently demanded from Ead mac Einmirich, King of Ireland, AD 572 to 598, was, according to a passage translated by Stokes, quote, a brooch which each king would leave to another, unquote. A king's throne was called rishi, which literally means ri is king and she is seat. Actually, the S is silent there, so it's rihi. Rihi! Yes. Brilliant. And Coda agrees. He thinks he should have a seat too. A means hue in modern language. Coda, why the sudden outburst? Barbara Murphy, very late, sneaking just say hello. Up in northern New Mexico for a few days, meeting fellow mythical fanatic Lexi Erickson. Be well, everyone. Hello, Barbara, and say hello to Lexi for us as well. Have a great time. From the quaint language of a passage in the Brehon Laws, we may infer that kings made some sort of distribution of duty and amusement according to the days of the week. Thus we find it stated, evidently in view of the king of some particular territory, that on Sunday he indulged in festivity and exercised lavish hospitality, otherwise he could not be a true king. Monday and Saturday he devoted to the administration of justice. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday he engaged in sports of various kinds, such as chess, horse racing, coursing, and on Thursday he and his wife devoted themselves to their children and to domestic duties in general. Wow. So only one day for the wife and kids, and the rest was all sort of business and play and sports and all that kind of stuff. And we are moving on to the section called Limitations and Restrictions. This is a short section. Irish kings were not despotic. They were all, from the supreme monarch down to the king of the Tuatha, in every sense, limited monarchs. They were subject to law like their own free subjects. We have seen previously, on page 46, Supra, that at their inauguration they had to swear that they would govern their people with strict justice and in accordance with the ancient customs of their kingdom, and their duties, restrictions, and privileges were strictly laid down in the Brehon Code. This idea pervades all our literature from the earliest time, of which examples may be seen in the passages referred to at the bottom. We shall see in chapter IX sect 14 that kings, like many others, were subject to gyasa, prohibitions from doing certain things. But besides these, there were many lines of action forbidden to them, as either dangerous or unbecoming, prohibitions which could hardly be called gyasa in the usual sense of the word. A king was neither to do any work nor concern himself about servile work of any kind, on penalty of being ranked as a plebeian. You're a pleb. Or, as the law expresses it, he should not employ himself with, quote, the handle of a shovel or spade or a clod mallet, unquote. I love that, clod mallet. Yes, don't lift a clod mallet, Mr. King, or you shall be known as a pleb. On a certain occasion, Fiachna, the father of the over-king Sweeney men, AD 614 to 627, went out to view his men ploughing, and the annalist who relates the circumstance is careful to add, by way of explanation or apology, quote, for Fiachna was not at all a king, unquote. And you may have heard Saskia now yelping as well. It was not lawful for a king to slaughter and cook an animal, such as an ox, for food. It was not permitted for a king or flaith noble to keep pigs under the Brehon laws. That is, to have them managed for him round or near his house by any of his immediate dependents. But swineherds living in their own homes at a distance from the palace fed great herds of swine in the woods for the king. And we know that the king's chief swineherds were held in honour. So the swineherd of Ulysses lived in a fine house on a farm at a distance from the palace. Odyssey XIV. If a king got wounded in the back during a battle, he was subject to the disabilities of a plebeian. Wow. Bit of a roller coaster life, really, when you think about it. Who would be a high king in medieval Ireland, And this is called household, retinue, and court officers. Under the king of whatever grade, forming part of his household, persons held various offices of trust with special duties, all tending to support the dignity or ensure the safety of the king, just as we find in royal households of modern times. Hang on, I'm just going to check this situation with the. Is it dark yet? Yeah. Imagine it's 9 o'clock and it's dark. Time was the sun would be shining in the window at this time. That's not too long ago. But anyway, winter is coming. Anyway, sorry, I'll read that again. Under the king of whatever grade and forming part of his household, persons held various offices of trust with special duties, all tending to support the dignity or ensure the safety of the king, just as we find in royal households of modern times. The persons appointed to each office always belonged to some particular family, in whom the office was hereditary, and all were paid liberal allowances for their services. The higher the king's status, the more numerous were the offices, and the more important the positions of the persons holding them. Some of these were in constant attendance and lived in or about the palace. Others attended only on special great occasions, and these commonly lived at a distance in their own territories, for they were themselves generally sub-kings or sub-chiefs or sub-kings. Most of the higher class of officers, such as professional men who will be treated of in chapter 11, who were supposed to give their whole or nearly their whole time to the service, had land and houses for their support not far from the royal residence. On state occasions, all these officers attended the presence of the monarch and were assigned their proper places in the great hall. The disposition of the whole company on such occasions will be found described in the Cree Gowloch and also in Petrie's Tara. But in accordance with an ordinance made by King Cormac MacArt, the Ardrey, or King of Ireland, was at all times, and not merely on state occasions, to be accompanied by a retinue of at least 10 persons, a flaith or noble, a Brehon or judge, a druid, a sai or doctor, a poet, a historian, a musician, and 3 servants, all to exercise their several professional functions when required. This arrangement continued in force until the death of Brian Boru in 1014, except that in Christian times a bishop took the place of a druid. A few picked men commonly accompanied the king as personal and immediate guards, and stood beside him when he sat down with swords or battle axes in their hands. For Irish kings were not less liable to assassination than others, from ancient times to the present day. Sometimes, as the law states, there were four such men, one standing in front of the king, one behind, and one on each side. A Brehon law tract tells us that, in selecting these, the king often gave preference to men whom he had saved from execution or redeemed from slavery, for such persons would naturally be expected to be faithful from a feeling of gratitude. But he is enjoined not to have among them a man of an opposing party whom he has saved on the battlefield, lest feelings of attachment to a former lord might tempt to treachery. This custom continued down to the 16th century, for the Four Masters have left us a description of Shane O'Neill's bodyguard, which has all the antique flavour of the period of the Red Branch Knights. In front of Shane's tent burned a great fire, quote, and a huge torch, thicker than a man's body, was constantly flaring at a short distance from the fire, and 60 grim and redoubtable gallow glasses with sharp, keen axes, terrible and ready for action, and 60 stern and terrific Scots, hired soldiers from Scotland, with massive, broad, and heavy striking swords in their hands, ready to strike and parry, were watching and guarding O'Neill. Unquote. And that's from Four Masters, AD 1557. The king commonly kept in his retinue a trainer, a T or E for the N hyphen FHER, a trainer, or a strong man, or Cámilid, a battle soldier, his champion or chief fighting man, to answer challenges to single combat. The king commonly kept in his retinue. Sorry, I read that already. Conor MacNessa's champion Triscatal, who lived in the palace of Owen, is described in the ancient tale in the Book of Leinster in terms that remind us of the English writer's description of a much later trainer, John de Courcy, whose very look in the day of single combat before King John of England and King Philip of France so frightened the French champion that he, quote, turned round and ran away off the field, unquote. Triscatal was a mighty, broad-fronted, shaggy-haired man with thighs as thick as an ordinary man's body, wearing a thick leathern apron from his armpit down. His limbs were bare, and his aspect was so fierce that he killed men by his very look. The trainer of the romances was probably the same as Ara Echte, or Avenger of Insults, described more quietly in the laws. We know that St. Patrick kept a household in imitation of the ancient Irish custom, and one of his attendants was his trainer or strongman, Saint Macarthon, afterwards first Bishop of Clogher, whose peaceful function was to carry the aged saint on his back across fords and other difficult places on their missionary journeys. At the entrance to the royal palace or council chamber stood the doorkeeper's door sheath to scan and interrogate all visitors. Of course, we met a doorkeeper, didn't we, in Cotmoitura, who questions Lou as to what talent he brings. Yes, Virgil Canton. I was going to say that, except for Tom is far too friendly for all of that, you know. Forgive me, says Office Care Peter. I've leaving cert complex numbers on my left and Anthony on the right of the desk. Why is that, Peter? Why have you got leaving cert complex numbers on your left? Where was I? I apologise. The 9 guardsmen, comite, that sounds like the Irish for committee, comite, C-O-M-E for the T-A-I-D-E, comitaid, or if there's a lenition on the D, it might be silent, of Connery the Great, King of Ireland, Conor O'More. The 9 guardsmen of Conor O'More, King of Ireland in the 1st century, stood threateningly at the door of the royal apartment with shields and ivory-hilted swords, and they allowed no one to enter who would not give a satisfactory account of himself. There was a rechtera or house steward, also called Taoiseach Taoileach, i.e., chief of the house, sometimes also called Fir Haigish, a man of the household, Major Domo, whose office was a very dignified one, Major Tom and Major Domo. The house steward of King Conor's household is described in the Bruin da Durga. Yes, da Durga's hostel. Remember that? We did read that. What do you see? Not difficult that. As wearing a fleecy mantle and holding in his hand the wand, his wand of office, which was no small ornamental rod, but a huge black beam like a mill shaft. He placed the guests in their proper places at table, assigned them their sleeping apartments, and determined each morning the supplies of food for the day. If a dispute arose on any matter connected with the arrangements for receiving, placing, or entertaining the guests, he decided it, and his decision was final. When he stood up to speak, all were silent, so that a needle might be heard if it dropped on the floor. From this description, it will be seen that rectere corresponded closely with the Anglo-Normal censal of later times. A particular officer had charge of the king's or queen's shades, jewels, or personal treasures. That the post was considered of importance is shown by the fact that the Lady Ernie, who had charge of the caskets and combs and golden ornaments of Maeve, Queen of Connacht, in the time of the Red Branch Knights, is described as mistress of all the maidens who waited on the Queen in the Palace of Croghan. The shades were generally kept in a corbolog, or large round ornamental satchel, or in a number of such receptacles. One man, and sometimes two, had charge of the chessboard and chessmen. The board was enclosed in some sort of case, and the men were often kept in a bag of wire netting. There was a Taoiseach Sgúr, or master of the house, who had, and that is from the Irish word Taoiseach, chief, who had charge of the king's stables and horses, and there was an Echara, or groom. 3 outriders or esquires, marquis or retiri, horsemen or knights, attended King Connery or Conora, each of them, when off of duty, holding a whip or scourge, srigel, in his hand, symbolical of office. We first mentioned among the other officials chief swineherds and chief cooks, whose positions were obviously considered of importance. Runners, i.e., messengers or couriers, were always kept in the king's or chief's employment, and not unfrequently we find women employed in this office. Finn McCool had a female runner who figures in the story of Diarmid and Grania. I'm going to read one more paragraph and then we're going to finish up, I think. Gordon Farrell has joined us. Hello, Gordon. Good evening and welcome to Live Irish Schmitz. Kathy Maydeo. Forgot. What? How can you possibly? Of course, it is on Tuesday. It's not on the normal Monday. So that would be a good reason for not remembering. A king kept in his court an olive of each profession. Poet, historian, storyteller, or most commonly one olive combining all these 3 professions. Physician, brehon, builder, etc. Each of these gave his services to the king, for which an ample stipend was allowed, including a separate dwelling house and free land. Wow. Who would be a king? Nobody. But who would work for the king? Maybe a lot of people. But besides this, the professional man had private practice, and the law set forth the exact remuneration for each kind of work. The whole institution flourished in the time of Camden, who describes it, quote, "These lords, i.e., the Irish kings and chiefs, have their historians about them, who write their acts and deeds. They have their physicians, their rhymers, whom they call bards, and their harpers, all of whom have their several livelihoods, and have lands set out for them," unquote. Fools, jugglers, and jesters were always kept in the king's court for the amusement of the household and guests, or the cheesy dad joke tellers. They and their functions will be described in chapter XXIX, section 9. Those immediate retainers and officers of the king who lived in or near the palace and took their meals in their own apartments, a very numerous company, were supplied with food each day from the royal stores. I can only say that the royal stores must have been quite substantial in that case. Really. You know, Marcus, apparently didn't even realise it was Tuesday. Yes, I was too busy dining with Monica Regley yesterday evening and her group of friends who were touring Ireland from Switzerland. So there you go. That's why I wasn't here. It's all her fault. She was making me eat delicious food and making me listen to several bad jokes that she was telling, which are on an equal par to some of the bad jokes I tell myself, as in they're hilariously funny, as in not bad at all, you know. Um, so apparently there's a chance of aurora borealis tonight, northern lights. I am going to head out with the camera, I think. Let me just quickly check the whole aurora situation. Yes. Yes. KP equals 6 right now. Yeah, looking good. Did you have tea and Swiss roll, a proper Irish dessert? No. But I did get one moment. Oh, I have to show you this, which is another way of saying I'm going to show off. So the Swiss do chocolates very well. And Lindt, of course, are a very famous chocolate maker. But what about Lindt chocolates in a little mini milk churn? Isn't that lovely? Yeah. Half gone already. And this is a milk chocolate. Yes. So because you're all on the other side of the camera and, in different parts of the world, I can't physically share. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to eat the chocolate myself, and let's all pretend we're sharing at this moment in time. So I hope we all enjoy it. This chocolates are really very nice. So, I mean, at this stage of the day, all that remains for me to say is never, ever do a live stream with a big chocolate in your mouth. Never speak with your mouth full. My mother always said that. Just don't do it. It's very rude. It's very inconsiderate. All the people looking there saying, wouldn't I love to be eating Swiss chocolate right now? That was exaggerated, of course. Oh, Joan is sharing some wine with us right now. Michael says, hey, that's just not proper. Yeah, it's not. Apologies. So, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm enjoying it, and I'm learning all the time. So it seems that the laws were very complex, and I suppose the customs involved with kingship and the king's court and retinue, etc., etc. Everything was very carefully prescribed, it seems, down to the letter. Quite a structured society, and it has to be said that for all the things that have been said by Irish people about the British monarchy, sometimes those things are said in ignorance and with a hint of jealousy. We had uh, kings, and as I said, very, very structured society. And we even, the Dalriata conquered parts of Scotland, and there were even Irish kings who conquered parts of Northumberland. I have to read more about that. I want to do an episode about that. The Irish kings who claimed Northumberland. I definitely need to do some research about that and do an interesting live stream about it. Rex wants to know, but did they have chocolate? I believe they kept. Definitely don't eat during a live stream, Anthony. Don't. It's a bad idea, because what happens is these moments get captured and then they get recorded for posterity. They definitely had bees, so they had honey. I don't think they had sugar. They probably had good cheese. Chocolate, I'm not so sure, because the thing about chocolate is you need cocoa. It's not sort of stuff you find in Ireland. Bring a coat, proper cold. That's why I put the jumper on, Peter. Literally 20 minutes before I started the live stream, I just said to Anne, I said, I find it chilly this evening. So I put the Ganzi on. So I'm going to bring the coat for the possible aurora. Well, let's hope there is aurora, and then I get some nice pictures. Chocolate is older than sugar, born of the cocoa cherry. I'll tell you a good one. On what day was that now? Another of the many Mythical Ireland community people who I met recently was Alana Hudis. Alana is from Vashon Island near Seattle, which is also the place where Erin Durrett lives. And Alana and her husband Tom were in the Boyne Valley in the past number of days, and we were at Newgrange, and it was a scorcher of a day, beautiful hot sunny day, and we went inside Newgrange, and immediately everybody was commenting on how cool it was. It was lovely and cold inside Newgrange, and everybody was cooling down from the heat of the day. And our guide, who was John, the chief guide there at Newgrange, lovely man, and also, by the way, very funny man. He and I have a similar sense of humor. Well, he said that somebody had recently said, it would make a great wine cellar. To which somebody else had said, well, yeah, except for we don't grow grapes in Ireland. And then somebody else said, well, with the way things are going, you'll be able to grow grapes in Ireland soon. And by the strangest coincidence, and I'm not going to say who or where, but I was in a house today in Ireland, and the man who owned the house, there was a glass house attached, was growing grapes, and he gave me some grapes grown in Ireland. Coincidence or what? Anyway, I'm eating pistachios, and that is terrible. I must be peckish. Folks, it's been my pleasure, as always. Don't forget, we're back next, I think. Let me just double check. It's a reasonably rare event that we have to postpone the Monday live stream into Tuesday. So hopefully that will continue to be the case. Just double check my calendar before I speak out, before I speak too soon. What day is it? Today's the 12th. Next is the 18th. Oh, yeah. I actually won't be able to do the live stream next Monday because I'm giving a talk, which is the opening talk for the September Walking Festival, the Boyne Valley Trails September Walking Festival. And don't forget that on Saturday the 23rd, I'm doing the Hill of Tara Myths and Monuments Tour as part of the Boyne Valley Trails September Walking Festival. And on Sunday the 24th, which is Sunday week, I'm doing the Brunabonia Myths and Monuments walk, which begins at the Brunabonia Centre. We walk to Douth, we walk to Nouth, we walk to Newgrange, and we walk back to the Visitor Centre. So tickets for those events, if you're in the area, are available on boynevalleytrails.ie. boynevalleytrails.ie. I will share that link with you now. Actually, no, I'll share the link direct to the September Walking Festival page so that you can see all the events on there. So hopefully I might see a few of you on maybe one of those. So next week's live stream is also postponed. It will not be on Monday. I could live stream the talk, but that'd be a bit unfair because people are actually buying tickets for it. But we'll see. We'll see what we can do about recording it. I'm away foreign next week, says Joan, so it won't be on. Well, Joan, the best of luck. Enjoy it, and we'll hopefully see you very soon. It was a great pleasure to have you in the house tonight. Good night, Helena. Thank you. And yes, indeed, have a great week, everybody. And Tom, yes, indeed. Yeah. Keep on the right side of that and get plenty of rest. Is that a chocolate or an everlasting gobstopper? Apologies. Terribly rude. Love to you all, and to you, Vicky, and Evan and Chili. A very good afternoon. Once again, a very interesting episode. Anthony says, Anne, many thanks. Hopefully you'll get some wonderful photos later. Yes. Going to pack all the camera equipment now and the pistachio nuts so that I can keep snacking away. Mariana Dunn, who I don't know if I said hello to earlier on. Lovely to see you, Mariana, and hello and goodbye, as it were, at the very end. Sharon O'Farrell just tuning in now. Not to worry, we get your mention in there. Hello, Sharon. Hello and goodbye. And she'll be able to watch the replay now when we stop. And if you want, you can even skip the hellos at the beginning. Thank you, Elaine, for joining us. And we'll see you next week at some point. I think it'll be Tuesday next week. So we'll see you all then. In the meantime, go safely. Have a great week. Icha wa Kulasov, Slán go Fóill, and of course, most importantly, may the chalk be with you all, says Rex. Tóg go bugé.